Let me see if I can get this down. How's it going? I'm going to shorten up the introduction. Some people say it's too long. Some people say it's too short. Most people say it's too long. You got any comments in here? Just one from Radar. Anyways, and people are coming in now, so I guess we're doing okay. So we are going to shorten this intro. Stefanos, what's going on?
Not too much. It's been, tyranny never sleeps, so we always have something new going on, that's for sure. Always in the legal fields, from SPCA or OSPCA to all, you name it.
What's
crazy.
an OSPCA?
Well, they've lost their stuff. They're called PAWS now, but apparently they're still using OSPCA. So I don't know.
That's short for what?
The Ontario freaking blah blah blah. Do you have to make me fucking say everything all the time?
Hey, we got the devil's in the details.
Everybody knows what the OSPCA is. Oh God.
Ontario Society of Cruelty to Animals, or what?
Cruelty to Animals, correct.
Yeah. All right, Peter's in the background. He's saying cheers or something.
Oh God, he's all happy he won this cup.
You want to bring him in?
Yeah.
Anyways, a couple things I want to mention. I'm going to try to bring up the video guy. There's an important case. We want to get this. It's going appealed. It's Ontario Superior Court, Stefanos? I sent you the link.
Yeah, and they're going to be. It started in they're in the federal court, and then they went to the Federal Court of Appeals. That's where they're at now.
So, quick blurb on what is this case? It's got to do with the cancellation. No, it's got to do with the travel mandates being illegal. There's 4 or 5 constitutional violations. This was judged to be moot. I think Bernier, what was that? The former prime minister, the guy that wrote part of the Constitution amendments.
Peckford.
This is all tied in with that stuff. They ruled that it was moot. They've been fighting hard against this. It's going on 3-4 years now, and they're back in a court, Toronto. It's going to be around noon or 1 o'clock. I'll get the details as the show goes on, and maybe I'll play the reel at the end of the show, so people can show up Monday afternoon. Now, will it be of a benefit if lots of people show up to this thing?
Absolutely. If judges see that there is a big interest of the public, which all of Canada should have a massive interest in this, whether you like the people or not, they're standing up for everybody. This is your Constitution. They have it based on 4 sections of the Constitution in the Charter in the Constitution, Section 6, Section 7, Section 12, and Section 15. So, from mobility rights to, everything, cruel and unusual punishment. So this is the judge, if I read this correctly, he's erred in law on some of these things. He apparently, I believe, allowed 2 of them to continue on the Constitution and the rest to be stopped, or on the Charter again, sorry. But Section 7 for sure, 6, which was your mobility rights, there's a cruel and unusual punishment, and what was the other thing? Anyways, these are very key, important things in our society to keep from government from doing it again. But remember, this was also under the threat from the government, Justin Trudeau namely, who turned around and said and threatened that they will do it again. So this needs to be put to bed. This cannot be stopped. It has to go through Supreme Court of Canada if it has to.
Further to the federal court ruling that part of Sean and Carl's action can go to trial, the appeal to ensure the whole action can proceed will be heard on November 3rd in the Federal Court of Appeal in Toronto. 4 years, 15,000 pages of evidence, including some damning details, getting closer to court. Further to our earlier and full update below from January 9th of this year, Sean Ricard and Carl Harrison now move a step closer to the opportunity to fully hold a Liberal government and Justin Trudeau to account in court. Their divisive, cruel, and unscientific overreach in imposing a nearly 9-month ban on unvaccinated Canadians and permanent residents from traveling on planes, trains, and ships caused hardship and damage to millions of Canada. The hard worker Sean and Carl's lawyer Sam Presvelos, did I pronounce that right? Stefanos.
Yes, there's a Greek boy in there.
Paid off in June 2022 when evidence emerging in discovery in those earlier stages of the case caused the Attorney General, David Lamenti, who he should have permanent horns implanted on his forehead. Man, this guy's as evil as it get, in my opinion.
They don't get no worse. You're absolutely true. Correct there, Ed. I'll agree with that.
You're of the same opinion?
Absolutely, 100%.
To reconsider the government's position, and the vaccine mandate for travel was suspended, with the implicit threat being made that they would do it again if they wanted to do so. In a moment of respite, those millions of people denied their fundamental Section 6 rights for nearly 9 months could once again travel to see their loved ones and family events, to work, and to take much needed vacation time. This appeal, which will be heard at the Federal Court of Appeal in Toronto on November 3rd, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, will consider whether Justice Kent Horn erred when he allowed the government's motion to strike out 2 parts of Sean's and Carl's claim, those parts in relation to Section 7 and Section 12 of the Charter. What's Section 7 of the Charter, do you know?
I believe that's the right to life and liberty and security of the person.
And Section 12?
Oh, off the top of my head, I believe one of them is going to be cruel and unusual punishment.
Justice Horn allowed those parts in relation to Section 6 and Section 15 to go ahead to trial pending the outcome of this appeal and any further appeals that may follow. Section 7, Life, Liberty, Security, deals with crucial rights that permit us all to decide for ourselves what happens to our body. Sean and Carl believe that the choice to accept the vaccine or not should be free of any sort of coercion, which it definitely was not, or detrimental consequences imposed by any authority. Yeah, the authorities are knocking us down pretty hard. They do not accept that the bar to their success in relation to Section 7 is so high as to have no reasonable prospect of success, and that their arguments should be allowed to proceed to trial.
Ed, this is Section 15 as the equality of everybody under the law. Where do you see this being violated? You got Doug Ford saying people with the turbans on their head, they're allowed to ride motorcycles with no helmets. Well, the rest of us will still get nailed for helmets because they're going under religious beliefs, but nobody ever challenged it under Section 15. If they can ride with no helmet, everybody can ride with no helmet. You know, obviously, a safety issue is not going to happen there, right? Because you're going to have some people splitting their heads and some just ain't, or they'll split their heads anyway. It's a motorcycle. You're flying at a speed, you know. Yeah.
Gee, would Kenny having lunch with his health minister and other guys at a tabletop exceeding the distancing, how many people were allowed at a gathering, drinking, entertaining,
Alberta,
that wouldn't have anything to do with it, would it?
Was that the one where they were up on the balcony having a great time living? Yeah, there you go. Yeah, of course that would have everything, right? Look at Sam Oosterhoff in Niagara West down here. You're all locked in your freaking homes. You couldn't go out and do anything. But hey, he had a big party at one of the restaurants there. Nobody was wearing anything. Imagine that.
Sections 12, cruel, unusual punishment, is normally heard in relation to the cruel and unusual punishment of people in the criminal justice system in relation to penal sanctions. Sean and Carl believe that then Prime Minister Trudeau, why do they call him Trudeau? We know he's a Castro.
Yeah, but look, this is one thing that they've missed really key in here, unfortunately. Where have we seen cruel and unusual punishment? Victim surcharge on all the fines. They should have threw that in there too, because it's already been ruled on. Those things are unconstitutional.
Trudeau developed the vaccine mandate as deliberately cruel and unusual punishment for those Canadians who were exercising their Section 7 right to refuse the COVID-19 vaccines, and at the same time to use that punishment very publicly as a potential campaign promise and wedge issue in the 2021 general election, which it was. The appeal will not be easy, but our case is in great hands with Sam Presvelos, the young litigator who achieved so much for millions of people in Canada who were, until June 2022, denied the right to even leave their country. If Sean and Carl succeeded, then the government may try to further appeal the decision to the Supreme Court of Canada. It is very apparent that they do not want this case to be heard, and particularly, perhaps the Section 7 arguments. If Sean and Carl fail at this stage, then they take their arguments to the Supreme Court. They want to have their arguments and evidence heard on all four sections, 6, 7, 12, and 15.
Yeah, and just to add to that a little bit, Stephen Harper, when he was in power, he went and told everybody if they had a mere 5% chance to extinguish or diminish a constitutional right of a Canadian, they were to take it. So, either way, this is going to go to the Supreme Court of Canada, hands down, no questions asked.
Well, not if enough people show up and the judge says, okay, we're going to hear all of this. And if he rules in our favor, that's great. Now, if he doesn't, then it's definitely going to the Supreme Court of
either way, win or lose, it's going to the Supreme Court. That's the bottom line.
Why, you think the government's going to try to appeal if they get a win?
Oh, hell, if the government's telling people to take a chance at a 5% chance of eroding or extinguishing our rights, you're damn right they're going to take a stab at it.
Brian Peckford and Maxime Bernier appealed to the Supreme Court of Canada, which refused to heal their appeals. Early in the proceedings in the federal court in Ottawa, Sam Presvelos has been successful in getting agreements from the Trudeau lawyers that if Sean and Carl were to file an action for damages, then the government would not oppose use of the large and valuable evidentiary record from the earlier case. 15,000 pages, guys. In November 2023, Sean and Carl filed their claim for damages against Trudeau government. Preliminary proceedings were protracted, and Trudeau's lawyers filed a motion in July 2023 to strike the claim entirely. A year later, in November 2024, Sam Presvelos represented Sean and Carl in the federal court in Toronto to fight the motion to strike the claim. The outcome is perhaps not what Trudeau expected. The case will go to trial. The claim was made in relation to the breach by the Trudeau government of the rights afforded to Sean and Carl under sections 6, bracket 1, 7, 12, and 15 of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. The court ruling found as follows. Section 6.1. The claim can proceed to trial for Carl, but not for Sean, on the basis that Sean was not a Canadian citizen but a permanent resident when the travel mandate was in place. Canadian permanent residents are not protected under Section 6.1 of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Section 7, the claim is struck subject to appeal. Appeal has been filed. Section 12, the claim is struck subject to appeal. Appeal has been filed. Section 15, the claim can proceed to trial for both Sean and Carl. Therefore, the federal court has decided that it will hear the case as to whether mobility rights were infringed and whether so-called unvaccinated Canadians are in fact a protected group against whom Trudeau discriminated. Sean and Carl are now pursuing an appeal in relation to the ruling on sections 7 and 12. Such an appeal is unlikely to be heard for several months. If that appeal is successful, then the government lawyers may appeal further to the Supreme Court, and that hearing would take place some months later. So what I'm reading now is what was put forth October of 2021 and summer and fall of 2021. Public interest. Close to 20,000 people attended the hearing via Zoom. Were you on that? Okay, so this goes back to November 2023 and July of 2023 and November of 2024. So big day, guys, happening here Monday. And if you want to donate, Freedom and Justice is a registered Canadian charity. Therefore, a tax receipt can be issued. Donate to the cause.
Let me just say something really quick, because this is a lot of craziness. So, Conservative Party is responsible for a lot of bad that's happened in Canada, including, again, with Harper removing trespass from the criminal code. Harper changed the private charges. This is why nobody could lay those charges on Justin Trudeau when they tried it for the scam that he pulled, the SNC Lavalin one, and and gave the Crown the power to grab control of the charges and throw them out anytime they want for any reason, and there's no recourse. That needs to be challenged constitutionally. So this is what they've been doing to protect themselves. And connect the dots, guys. Call me a conspiracy theorist, call me whatever you want. We got crime that's so crazy right now. It's through the roof. You got Pierre Poilievre saying if he's elected, he's going to immediately strip you of your constitutional rights using the notwithstanding clause in order to, throw you in jail indefinitely without a hearing or a bail or whatever. Can you imagine the mayhem that would happen in Ottawa? This is the Conservative Party. And then now you got Clown Carney, which is actually doing one good thing. I'm shocked. They want to remove the notwithstanding clause from the charter, which it should be, because the Donahue case, if anybody's ever read it, will see that that section being in the charter is unconstitutional in itself because of the fact that it removes inviolable rights. So if your rights are inviolable, how can they be void? So this is craziness. And now all of a sudden, Pissy Pants Pierre is started campaigning and all this because that's his answer to crime. Can you imagine being a political prisoner? Even us guys here, we get arrested, thrown in, we're doing dead time. We can be in there for 10 years. There's no bail. There's no, it's insanity. And if you look at it and connect the dots, why would they create this problem with crime right now? That opens the door perfectly for Pierre to come in and do exactly that and become a full-blown communist country. That's just my opinion. I got no proof of that, but I know how politics works. I've been in it far too long. That's one of the scary things. And
Coots 4, Coots 3.
They'd still be in jail.
4 months.
They'd still be in jail with no freaking hearing and nothing else. They'd be rotting in jail waiting for a bail hearing.
Well, Kevin used to rot in jail. It was a habit of his for waiting for bail, wasn't it?
Yeah, but he got out eventually. He'd still be in there right now.
Well, if it wasn't for the generosity of our viewers, yeah, he'd still be in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So thanks, guys. We haven't forgotten about you. It's nice that you donated. And I know it's tough for people to donate. A lot of people weren't working.
No, yeah. And still, look at the economy now here. It's government's doing whatever it can to destroy it as much as they can, purposely to make the people dependent on the government. Communism, look out, people.
Speaking about communism, what's our guest is from what you're staying in California, aren't you?
Okay, Ed, let's go and let's deal with this. Yes, I am in California. However, unlike you gentlemen, I can go to Arizona, I can go to Nevada, I can go to Florida, I can go anywhere. However, in Canada, you guys pointed out that one of the things in the charter, which I believe is section 6, that a Canadian has a right to travel, and I couldn't travel back home. Is that correct? Was it section 6? See, I'm Canadian, Ed, but I couldn't go back because I refused to get a jab. I did. And look where I'm stuck. But I'd rather be stuck in San Diego than to be stuck in Canada during the lockdowns. I spoke out.
I get it.
And all the sheep, they basically laid down in Canada. And you needed people outside of Canada to speak, and I spoke.
Yeah, and you know what else is interesting? California is the most advanced Agenda 21 on the planet. And the other crazy thing is this. You can't build a single dwelling home in California. It has to be multiple families. Look out.
We're all screwed. Well, we wrote about this in our international best-selling book. It Starts with Gold. And you can go to the QR code and you can download it for free. We talk about the agenda.
Peter, I'm going to make your screen a little bit bigger so people can click on that
That
QR
will
code.
give you, and also the paper, the working paper for our next book called Killing Crypto, which is a trap to get everybody into digital currency, central bank digital currency. And we provide all the receipts because nothing looks the way that people are actually being presented. It's a show, and we show you behind the curtain.
Stefanos, do you mind if we talk on this for a few minutes?
Sure, go ahead, speak away. I'm gonna watch. I'm a spectator sporting this.
So, I don't know, Peter, are you up on what the Trump's big beautiful bill is?
Which
And
one? There's so many all the time.
so in the big beautiful bill, I forget what they named it, but they brought in legislation that legalizes tokenization.
Oh yes, we talked about that. Can I just share something about the biggest scam? Because you don't get there unless you are selected. I've come
Okay.
to that conclusion. Can I just address about Mr. Trump? I know people aren't going to like this because I'm not team Democrat, team Republican. I'm an individualist. So in 1999, Mr. Trump goes bankrupt. $1 billion for himself and $3 billion for his corporation. And they have a meeting in his office, the big bankers of the world who hold all his debt, who can make him go bankrupt right then and there. They cut a deal for him that's never been cut before, and they did not force him into bankruptcy. You don't think that they realized that this guy could talk and they would pull him out when they needed? And he gets a show and he becomes like several $1 billion of free advertisement. So what has happened is when he was not elected, he created USA One, which is what we call a stable coin. And what it is basically corporations are offering like their own currency. Now, I want the viewers to understand this. There happens to be central bank digital currency, and look at it as being communism. And then you look at stable coin, look at it as being fascism. The difference is government and fascism hides behind private corporations. Now, Trump gets reelected. He passes this back in.
This is currency, guys, okay?
That's not currency. That's fire.
Wait. But that's crony corporate, private. This is crony capitalism that you're saying.
Right. So
hang on. We're getting off topic here. Yeah. First of all, stable coins. What are they? What backs them?
Really nothing except like they can attach it to gold, all sorts of things. But they're issued by corporations.
Some will be. Now, here's the beauty. Listen to this thing. This is what a lot of people aren't aware of. It's going to be a digital currency. Okay, first of all, they're going to tie it to the new ID. So you're going to have a digital ID with a digital currency. Now, the beauty of this is if I was trying to sell U.S. treasuries, which nobody wants to buy, China's gotten rid of more than half of their U.S. treasuries, which is basically buying the debt of the federal government in the States. Nobody's buying these things. The private bank called the Federal Reserve, which is as federal as Federal Express is, they are the ones that issue this the U.S. What are they called again?
Fiat currency.
T-bills that are also referred to. So back in the day, many people used to say, you know what, we'll buy these, we'll buy the American debt, we'll earn good interest on it. The American government is solid; it's never going to go default. I'm guaranteed my 2, 4, 8, 10, whatever, 12% interest. It's as good as gold. So they thought. But here's the thing: if nobody wants these things, and people have figured out it's all bullshit, it's all manufactured from debt. When you make a loan, they don't print money. It's not somebody else's loan. Federal Reserve banking is based on 10% I think that's the reserve. I don't know if they lowered it. I think
No, they
Canada
got rid of
lowered
they got rid of it on March 26, 2020. That there's no reserves required. That means the Federal Reserve can produce as much money as they like, and the
Print it.
banks can produce as much money as they like. And they basically, if many people go to, let's say in Canada, it's the Canadian Depository Insurance Corporation. In the U.S., it's the Federal Depository Insurance Corporation, and they think their money is protected. In Canada, it's $100,000. In the U.S., it's $250. I want to give you some context. There's $17 trillion in the U.S. in these deposits, like in this, that are supposedly protected. But if the banks were to go bankrupt, there's only $120 billion sitting, and this is in the U.S. and Canada, it's a lot less. So it's a fraud. And in essence, people walk around thinking they own something. And I know that you gentlemen both sell. What do you sell? I know what you sell your viewers. I
It
watch.
might be gold. I don't know. It could be gold.
You sell gold. I know you sell gold, and I know that's important because you want to have stuff you can hold. Because Ed, we have to look at history about this fiat cash. And in the 12th century in China, there was a dynasty called the Yuan dynasty. They were the first dynasty to bring out paper, the first empire to bring out paper, and it collapsed within 100 years. Now, one thing which people have to realize, which is very frightening, that the Ming dynasty rose afterwards, but it was only 1/3, and the rest of the empire turned into warlords. Everything started collapsing. Now, the Ming dynasty was able to take control because they went back to silver. They had something to back it. Since 1971, since Nixon took the U.S. off the gold standard, basically, you just have paper. So can you show your paper again?
You want me to reach into my wallet again? I don't want to
Yeah,
get
please.
home.
Come on, I don't see the polymers like that every day. Oh my God, look at that. Can you
I
rip
believe
it?
this is made in Germany, eh?
Is it
Yeah, I think this is manufactured in Germany.
high quality then?
Well, I don't know. It's plastic money, so you can put it in the washing machine, I guess.
This here is manufactured in China. See, I won this last night. I just wanted to let you guys know.
Okay, back to the stable coins, guys. This is really important. So nobody wants to buy these T-bills, government T-bills. So they're bringing out stable coins, digital currency protected by the U.S. government or the Federal Reserve, more than likely. When you buy a stable coin, and say you get a stable coin, that stable coin is backed by $1 of T-bill. Believe it or not. This is how the American government is changing. They're putting makeup on a pig's face, pretty much. It's still a pig, but it's got makeup on it. It's going to be digital as opposed to cash, which is like you can carry it with you. Cash, when the computers crash or the phone lines go down, it still has some perceived value, but right now it's just a matter of by what we accept it. You can still use cash to buy gold and silver, but I think even those days are going to come to an end.
Can I share something, Ed?
Yep.
It's called, if you think you're going to get something new, you got a better chance of picking up a turd by its clean end.
Can I share something, Ed?
Yeah.
In our next book, which is called Killing Crypto, where we basically show that it's a scam, stable coin, digital currencies, all form, Bitcoin, all that. It's a scam when you start like researching behind the curtain and you start finding out that things just make sense, why things happen. Nothing happens in the economy unless it's ordained and it's allowed. So think about it. There's close to $7 trillion that moved into this digital currency that was supposed to be a medium of exchange, but now it's a store of wealth. And as that has been happening, all the central banks around the world have been purchasing as much gold and silver as they possibly can. So think about it. They're letting people go into digital currencies like Bitcoin, Ethereum, all that stuff. And in Toronto, the guy who created Ethereum actually lives there, right? You would allow a fool to make money, so everyone would walk around and say, I know this fool who made $100 million in Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever. So they all go there. And what happens is real assets are being purchased by the central bank and about 5 global management funds, such as BlackRock, Fidelity, Berkshire Hathaway, Citibank. All these companies are buying up everything, but people are buying something they can't hold, they can't smell. Like I'm holding real things like my cheap ass phone here, but at least it's real. I can hold it. Tell me about if you were in North Carolina and that hurricane hit and you had everything on your phone, your Bitcoin or whatever. How are you going to get it? If someone's, ooh, what is that? Is that King Charles? No. What is that?
It's just a silver dollar, man.
Well, I know Ross Bain's got a nice gold coin somewhere.
I'm looking for my.
I might have a few of those kicking around, all right? But don't tell anybody.
Yeah, I got a couple of those too. Not many. Nowhere near enough. And I was trying to buy more gold this week. You know how hard it is to find 2025 Canadian maples in gold?
It should have came to me, Ed.
For 2025 Canadian maples. No one's got them. Not any of the bigs, at least.
We can get it for you, no problem, man.
I don't know. Everyone seems to have run out of them. Another thing that's quite hard to get is Canadian maples at 2025. You can get older ones, but the new ones uncirculated, very difficult right now. Funny how that's never in the news, eh? And funny how they never talk about the lineups around the world at places that sell gold and silver, bullion, and coins. Other parts of the world, they're lining up around the block. Here, Canadian government or our Canadian media doesn't even touch it.
Well, one of the things that's really important to point out to Canadians that under Mark Carney, they sold the Bank of Canada, which again, the only thing about Canada in it happens to be the name, but he sold all the gold and silver. So the Bank of Canada has really nothing. So I'd rather be in California than Canada because Canada is going to be the first domino to fall.
I don't know. We'll see. And what do you mean by domino to fall? Like how bad is falling? Like
okay, so let me. This is just a hypothesis that my co-writer Adrian Seaspitters and I are working on. But we actually proposed this in our book before Mark Carney was chosen. He's the banker's banker. He was in charge of, well, he was at Goldman Sachs. Then he became the head of the Bank of Canada. And he wasn't even a British citizen at the time. He became the Bank of England. And then there's a big conference where there's a signing of $130 trillion worth of money managers in Glasgow, where people ESGs. Well, basically, he's the one pushing it. Now, Canada, it's something that's very powerful to go and have Canada be taken over by the globalists because Canada has many treaties with the United States. So that's a way to get into the back door. I'm going to give you a real example and how this worked for Americans. The United States did not pass the same-sex marriages. However, if people came to Canada, got married, they were recognized in the United States, which is one example. So many things that happen in Canada, the United States has to accept. And this is a back door. And this is why Carney needed to be put in place, because if the agenda got pushed off, then enough people could wake up because they'd be watching Freedom Report and they would say, no, I will not submit to tyranny and lunacy, and I will not be led by idiots.
Okay, so Now, going back early 2020s, I had posted an article. This is when Canada was trying to go to digital currency and trying to find a way. They could not do it because all our resources were already backing our dollar. So they had no resources. They could go to back crypto. But look at the very first thing that they say about crypto assets, that crypto assets are very risky. They're saying it's not even legal tender in Canada. Next line says it right there. Unlike the Canadian dollar, crypto assets are not legal tender in Canada. A government or a central bank doesn't issue or oversee them. But remember, when Kevin was doing with the Ethereum and stuff, remember they went after him, trying to demand all of his stuff on what he had traded and everything else, trying to go after Kevin. So if it's not legal tender, how is the the Canadian government going to go and try to get money out of him, saying that he owed money because he was trading crypto? Makes no fucking sense. This whole stuff is crazy. I don't know.
Look at this crap. Look at this. Stablecoins, sometimes called a value referenced crypto asset, are another type of crypto asset. They're meant to maintain a stable value. To try to keep their value, stablecoins may be tied to the value of a currency like the US dollar, be backed by other crypto assets, use algorithms that trigger purchases and sales to keep their value stable. Algorithms are step-by-step instructions that can be written in code. Stablecoins are also risky. Some have not maintained a stable value. Okay, so I love how they're not talking about the fact that when you buy a stable coin in the States, that it's not being backed by fiat currency, or what did we talk about earlier? T-bills, treasury bills, basically printed money. It's only worth the paper it's printed on, which is the same as toilet paper, maybe even less because it's not quite as smooth, and there's no kitty cats on the packaging. You guys dig what I'm laying out there? Any questions?
100%. Meow.
Meow. Now, Florida, they're able to use, it's not just Florida, it's a few other states. Peter, who else is using gold for paying taxes and shit? What other states?
Texas.
What else? Montana, too, I think, went that way, didn't they?
Well, I know the Midwest. Let's see.
So, as something that you guys were talking a little earlier was the central bank digital currency. They're even saying here is a digital liability of the central bank that can be used as a payments instrument. So, like this kind of stuff, either I'm not understanding it or it's making no freaking sense.
A blockchain is a visible online record of transactions, so much for privacy. Also called a ledger. People don't know that I got $120 in my wallet or $140 in my wallet, so I've still got privacy with cash. That's something you don't have with blockchain or crypto assets.
Well, can I just share something, Ed, that what we discovered, which people don't think about? Just going back in the history of the internet, it was ARPANET, which was created by the U.S. military in 1969. They didn't open it up to the public really until 1995 with Windows Explorer. We all know about Bill Gates being tied to the government from the very beginning and how his family has very strong ties. But they opened it up. Now, the next year, in 1996, there was a paper that was released under the Freedom of Information called How to Make a Mint. And it was written up by the NSA and MIT. And in it, it describes crypto. Now, if you go to 9/11, what really happened is it was banking legislation that was just waiting, like know your client rules, know your transactions. basically they turned the financial system into police, and they would charge $1 million per violation. So basically anything that was, that people might think was an issue, they had to go and notify the government. Well, in 2003, they put a fix on the internet. They introduced something called SH256, and what that is that's the encryption. Every single crypto out there is using an NSA software to determine how to lock it. Now, come on, these are spy agencies. This is the government. Now, don't you think, people, that they would put back doors in? I would assume that we have these organizations to put these back doors in. So this is exactly what I'm assuming happened. Now, in 2008, and I'm just going through history, what do we have happen? We know that we have the financial crash. People are upset. Banks are getting bailouts, and they're giving record amount of bonuses to people who almost bankrupted our civilization. Well, a number of people got really angry, and they had Occupy Wall Street in 2011. And they were saying, we need to get off this financial system. Well, guess what? Here we have something called Bitcoin. And the paper that was released is very similar to the MIT paper that was released about 12 years earlier. So if anybody thinks that this is a way of getting off the system, they are wrong. Because right now, there are only 8 nodes. Now, people who don't know what a node is, it basically is a juncture, a juncture. There's only 8 nodes that 80 to 90% of all crypto transactions go through. And there's something called the Depository Trust, which was created by 2 people who were very high up in the CIA. One was William Denzer, who was recruited right out of university, and the other one happened to be William Casey. Now, for those of you who do not remember who William Casey was, he was the person they blamed for the Iran-Contra fiasco, where U.S. law was circumvented and they were selling arms to Iran, basically off of drugs.
So
now, the reason I bring this up, Ed, is because the Depository Trust, which handles all transactions, which is basically in the United States, it's gotten rid of ownership. They're taking over crypto, but it doesn't stop there. There's something called the Bank of International Settlements, and it happens to be in the most evil place on the planet, which is Switzerland. And when everything starts collapsing, it all flows up, all the ownership. So the only thing that you're going to have, and I'm going to have, is the things that I can actually defend, things that I can actually touch. And in our book, what we talk about is owning assets in order of asset security. If the system collapses, what will you be left with? And it's so important to understand, because we happen to be in the fall of 1913. And I want to share with you why I say that, because just imagine you happen to be Ed or you happen to be Stefano. We've been in peacetime. If you're American, you hadn't been to war since the Civil War. If you're in Europe, you hadn't been in war since the Napoleonic Wars. Just imagine what life was like. And just imagine what happened just within a year. The world went to war and the world never came back from it.
So, Ed, I'm glad you highlighted that line up there. That was an eye catcher for myself. But has anybody ever noticed why China is like the big main head thing? Everybody's on their knees for China in one way or another. And that line you put up there, again, China. And what it is this is all being headed up by the UN. And China's the head of the UN. This is why they're pushing it so much. An introduction is exactly what I wanted you to look at. I don't want to spend too much time. Just the introduction part is what caught my eye. And they don't know fucking nothing, the effects of anything. Anyways, take her away, Ed.
Many central banks are considering issuing a retail central bank digital currency, CBDC, a digital form of central bank money that is available to the general public and can be used for retail transactions. By offering the public the option to hold a digital money in a CBDC instead of a bank deposits, the CBDC would directly compete with bank deposits in the market for digital money. As a consequence, there are concerns that a CBDC could substantially crowd out bank deposits. First of all, uh, they're lying to us right here. Money. Stefanos, would you hold up that silver dollar? Okay, guys. Silver is real money. Gold is real money. You can hold it, you can trade it, it has value, it's something. Okay, keep that in mind. Back to the article. Um, as a consequence, there are concerns that CBDC could substantially crowd bank deposits, which may undermine financial stability by raising the funding cost and reducing the profitability of the banking sector. However, little is known about the potential magnitude of the CBDC adoption and its crowding out effect on bank deposits. What a crock of shit. This is propaganda, Stefanos. Why do we bring these government documentation onto our show?
Yeah, but Ed, we bring it on to expose the fraud because look, what was the earlier thing about crypto assets from the Canadian government? Yet again, this is all Canadian government, all right? And they're saying it's not legal tender or anything, and you know all of this crap, and then you're coming over to here, which they're trying to go with this digital bullshit again, and they don't even know the effects of it. What would happen? What it would crowd out? What are they saying? It's going to crowd out the bank or whatever. It's just bullshit. This is the bullshit that people don't pay attention to.
The key
Can
to
I add
address this.
some, can I add something to this?
Go ahead.
And this is a hypothesis and it starts with gold and being further developed in killing crypto. And what it is that just think about it. They introduced Bitcoin and these digital currencies, and they were being sold as a store of wealth. And actually, the Bitcoin that's out there is not the original Bitcoin. They made a change to it in 2017. They split it off. The original one's about $42, and the other one happens to be over 100,000. But they get everybody onto this. They're training them. And they're offering stable coins. What's going to happen is they will collapse it, and the government, that's how they're going to get people on central bank digital currency. They're going to say, hey, they're going
to do.
They're going to collapse both stable coins and they're going to collapse cryptocurrencies, and they're going to come out and say we're going to regulate it because it's the Hegelian dialectic. And for those who don't know who Hegel was, he was a philosopher in the 1600s, and he came up with the dialectic, which says problem, reaction, solution. That means I have the solution, so I create the problem. The people cry for the government to step in, and the government has a plan already, and they implement it. And we saw this during COVID. Build back better. That was the plan to implement.
Okay,
Problem, reaction, solution. So they get all these people into cryptocurrencies, into stable coins. There's problems with it. And then what happens, the government steps in and says, we have to regulate it. And they implement the central bank digital currency, which is really social credit.
Okay, so just to get off topic here, because we've got like 10 minutes left, I just want to. Hashem said something at the beginning of the show, and Kim is saying something now. And Hashem mentioned the ruling in BC, but you see, he makes it sound like it's just BC. Don't worry, Hashem, I'm not attacking you. You just don't know, and many other Canadians don't know either. So This ruling in BC was a very dangerous political ruling. That's it. The judge had no business sitting on that ruling. They are a family law judge, and it's pure political because it ignored everything. They've ignored all the native treaties. They've ignored Nullus Tempus. They've ignored disclosure. They've ignored everything. So this is what's happened due to that ruling. That ruling literally wiped out Canada. Canada does not exist at this point. Russia can come down and take the Yukon Northwest Territories and make a legal land claim to it. Donald Trump spoke about the 49th parallel does not exist. He's absolutely right. They can come up the bottom and take over everything. So this is the thing that people don't understand. They're sitting there passing the letter that the private property owners, private property is in essence has been wiped out in Canada. So Richmond, BC, they all got letters saying that they don't own their property, basically, and you don't own shit. You don't own anything. So then you have this is a far-reaching. It's not centralized only to BC. It's clear across Canada. Nobody owns anything. Anybody comes and says anything, you don't have any property rights. So this is the far-reaching implications that people don't understand. Municipalities do not exist. They've been wiped out. Why are you paying property tax now? And you should bring this forward to your municipality, especially in the areas where it's ground central. Why do they not now say, I don't own this property. Why the fuck should I pay property tax? And not only why should you pay property tax, but my municipality doesn't exist any longer. This ruling has wiped it out. Let's take it a step further. There's banks now that are not mortgaging people's or renewing people's mortgages. Why? Because they don't own their property. So what's going to happen now why pay your mortgage? You can't default on it. The bank can't take it from you now because you don't own it. So why are you paying anything? So this ruling has caused complete chaos. This is happening now. Mortgages are not being renewed. Mortgages are not being given out because nobody owns your property. You do not have private property rights any longer in Canada. They are gone. Canada is gone. Every municipality is gone. Crown land patents have been erased. Native treaties have been erased. You can't have one without the other because the treaties were done and the patents are issued along with those treaties. So if you're going to wipe those out, then nothing exists. Canada is up for grabs for anyone. I could get really into this, but I'm not. There's an appeal where, there's going to be an appeal on that. There is an appeal on that, so I won't say anymore. But a lot of it, this is the worst political activist ruling I've seen a judge from the courts ever make in the entire history of Canada. It's absolutely ridiculous. And these appeals going to have to overturn this. And whatever side wins or loses, they're going to appeal. So this is going to be another case that's going to end up in the Supreme Court of Canada. Hold on to your pantyhose, people. If you thought Canada was fucked already, it's really fucked now.
You wouldn't expect the judges to screw us over like that, though, would you?
You will if it's one that's appointed by Trudeau and they're pushing an activist ruling. Absolutely.
Is that constitutional?
No, it's not that if it's constitutional or not, but politics and courts should be kept separate, and that's a precedent setting going way back in the Roncarelli case. So it's crazy for a judge to completely sit back and ignore Nullus Tempus disclosure and wipe out patents. A royal, what one royal does, another royal cannot undo. What gives this judge who tried to, by the way, apply a common law aspect to this, which is strictly forbidden. They cannot do that. When it comes to native stuff, they cannot apply common law to it. And this is the craziness. This is another thing. I'm not going to go on. I can go on all night. I can go on for the next 10 hours. But this is the worst ruling, and the implications of it are far reaching. And it's absolutely disgusting what's happened here. And, this is literally wiped everything out. And we are open now to legal land claims by Russia, USA. There's literally no Canada, no municipalities, nothing. This is why you're not getting money from the banks anymore. No mortgages, none of this crap. So everything has been wiped the freak out, period.
Gee, 60% of Canada's mortgages are getting renewed next year.
Nothing's getting renewed, Ed.
I'm telling you.
That is how that great statement from the great Klaus Schwab, the Bond villain. You own nothing and be happy. That is how they are going to take it. Because just think about it. They inflate the property values of your house because they print money and they're not producing anything new. So if you have more money and you're not making more money, they're stealing from you. And then they do property assessments. You can't afford that. They take your house. You will own nothing and be happy.
They can't take something that you don't own. This is what you're not understanding. This ruling has taken everything. We do not exist. This is why banks are not renewing the mortgages. This is what's going on here. This is why the letters went out. This from the municipalities. So why would, if anybody, please, if you're watching and you're from Richmond and you got one of these letters, please tell me why the actual F you're paying your property tax if you don't own it. You're being told you don't own it. This is all bullshit from the UN, yet again, the UN agenda. And this is one of the calls for one of the 79 calls to action by the United Nations. And this is what's going on. When you hear municipal meetings starting and all these things are like, oh, this is on the unceded land. You know what? There is no unceded land in Canada. Everything was surrendered under treaty. So, but that again is one of the 79 calls to action. And this is what's going on in Canada. You got a full-blown attack by the United Nations put on Canada. And unfortunately, the Indians do not even know that they're being used as a pawn. And in essence, technically, depending on if this gets overturned or not, their treaties are wiped out because the patents are wiped out. Everything is wiped out. It's erased.
Keep talking, guys. I'm trying to find the exact details for that court case that's supposed to be happening.
You don't want to find it. It's very big. I got it, but it's a very lengthy court ruling. But
so you asked me. Okay, can we go back to the question you asked me? And you said I live in Commie, California.
California.
Yeah. Well, guess what? I still think people own their property here. So how bad Commie, California is, it's a little better than Commie, Canada.
Yes, and you know what? Your patents over there are alive and well, and you don't even know that, probably more than likely, but your patents are alive and well, and there's a law place and everything else that stands.
And you're allowed to have your First Amendment. That means I'm in California, so I can say to everyone that it is my opinion that Stefano is, and you can't sue me. If I was in Canada,
you can't call me a communist, or I'll sue you.
I'm in California. I have a right, but in Canada, there's really strong defamation laws, which Stefano and I learned about this week. over the last 2 weeks.
I learned about that a long time ago. You learned
Okay.
about it. All
I
right?
learned a lot about that this week, and I found it very interesting. And we lost our good friend Ed.
That's okay. He's rolling around the background. Don't worry. I got my eye on him.
Well, before we roll off, do you want to talk about, you were talking last week about something that you and I have been good friends with for over 4 decades. And you were talking about it last week.
Anything about it? I don't know nothing. Are
You don't know nothing about it?
Talking about that school?
Yeah, that school.
You mean I can't use the excuse that Doug Ford said? I can't tell you I know that much about it there, Peter.
Isn't it funny? The former head of his party sat on the board.
Wasn't he the head? He's the chair, isn't he? Amazing.
Yes, that's right. But I'm talking about he was the chair of the board of governors, but the school doesn't exist anymore. But the one thing that I find very interesting, I want to share this, that there's no protection for kids either.
No, and that's in all of Ontario. That's just not RLA. It's all of Ontario. And what I find baffling is, in the public school system, everyone, and think about this. I want everybody to think about this. In the public school system, you have to be a teacher that's licensed under the College of Teachers. You got to have criminal background check. But in the private school system, you don't need it. And you know what? RLA is a perfect example of why you should absolutely have those in place, because look at who did we have? We had murderers, pedophiles, we had all these psychopaths. We even a narcissistic psychologist, was it, or a therapist or some shit. All at that school. We had drug dealers, Somalia affair murderers at that school. So why would the Doug Ford PC party government, and you know what, it stands for progressive conservative, but everybody knows when the word progressive's there, it really means communism. So I call them the Progressive Communist Party of Ontario, and that's what they are. Why would they not want to make, and this isn't, you're not reinventing the Education Act. You can make it by a simple, that very day we all spoke from Queen's Park, you could have had Paul Calandra, the education minister, could have said, oh, this is common sense. This makes sense. We have it in the public school system. Why would we not do it in the private school system? And he could have made a simple ministerial order on that day. He could have had those two things. That's the only two things we're asking. You can never protect a kid 100%, but that goes a long damn way to do it. So if you're in Ontario, you know what? Hell, anywhere in Canada or anywhere in the world you're watching this, email Doug Ford, email Paul Calandra, email Sam Oosterhoff, because to me, in my eyes, he's still a kid. He hasn't found a backbone yet to stand up and use his voice in his own party. A yes man is not what you need, nor is it what you want. You need somebody who's going to stand up in your riding of Niagara West, where that school was, and you have to let these people, who they call honorable, I have a different opinion on that, and to protect your children. This is a very small change to protect children.
Okay, guys, I got the video from Monique. Can I play it now?
Please.
And then we can get a brief comment off you. We're over an hour again. Damn it, I hate going over an hour. Share screen. Here we go, Instagram. Let's see what Monique's got to say. Come on, play.
An unvaccinated Canadian and you reside in the Toronto area, this video is for you. On November 3rd, Sean Rickard and Carl Harrison have an upcoming vaccine trial lawsuit. It will be held in the Federal Court of Appeals, and this is to ensure that this whole action can proceed. They are one step closer to fully holding the Liberal government and Trudeau to account in court for their cruel, divisive, and unscientific overreach when they imposed the mandates, vaccine mandates, in order for you to travel. This happened in October of 2021. This was deeply personal to me. As many of you know my story, I was in Australia for the last time in September of 2021 for a few months. I knew what was coming down the pipeline, and the day that I left the airport, I had to have that conversation with my kids that we might not see each other again for quite some time. But this should be deeply personal to all of you. They stripped you of your right to be able to travel, to enter establishments, to work, because they wanted you to inject yourself with their vaccine, a vaccine that never went through proper safety protocols due to emergency use authorization. Every one of us should be supporting and standing with Sean Rickard and Carl Harrison on November 3rd. If you can't attend in person in Toronto at the federal court on 180 Queen Street West, you can watch it virtually. There are over 5 million of us in Canada that this was done to, and this was so extremely cruel. I hope that you guys will show up. I'm going to put all the details below. And I hope that this fight isn't over for you. I know that we're tired. I know that we're spent. But this is a very crucial case that we need to get behind, and we need to support these individuals who are standing up for our constitutional rights and freedoms. Because if you're one of those Canadians that knows how quickly this happened and how they could just strip you of your rights in the by the snap of their fingers, you know that this could potentially happen again. And we need to ensure that it doesn't happen again. So I really hope that you guys will be in attendance on November 3rd. God bless you all.
Well, Ed, there you go. Everyone needs to show up when it comes to the Constitution. It affects everyone, even the people who hate it, even the freaking communists in Canada. This protects vets.
If I was in Toronto, I would be there because I just want to share just one last story. What made me become very vocal is a really good friend of mine. He worked for the government. He was a prosecutor. He refused to get jabbed. They forced him on his vacation leave and everything. He was going to be made a magistrate for Transport Canada to deal with like issues that were happening. He ended up taking his life because they took away his life. And at that point, I became very vocal because the country I once loved, that I actually bought into, was a lie. When Stefano and I were at Robert Land Academy, I used to create mail for myself, and you used to be able to send out, to different places, and they would send you some information. And Prime Minister John Chrétien was the Minister of Constitutional Affairs. In 1982, I sent away for the Constitution, and I had it, and I was proud. And I thought I lived in the greatest country in the world. And I have to share with you, it was a sham. And as a Canadian, I hurt. And I would never bend the knee to get a shot from anyone. Actually, I won't even go to a doctor because they're going to go and push some type of medication that's going to stop my immune system.
That's what it seems it's come down to lately. The healthcare is no longer about health. It's a little bit crazy.
Can I leave one last story, which I found really disturbing? When I was back in Canada in 23, my mother, who got 8, she keeps on talking about polio, right? She got 8 jabs, and guess what she got? Take a guess. Take a guess. Come on. What did she get right after she got her 8th jab? Come on.
Absolutely not polio. Like, come on.
No, she got COVID. So I wish I taped it because she was freaking out. But later on, she was okay because they got rid of the remdesivir. They weren't giving old people remdesivir. They just stopped it a few months before. So, she's still walking. And there was a woman sharing her room because there's no way you get a room in Canada by yourself, right? And on the Thursday, I'm there visiting my mother, and 3 doctors come in and they take their curtain and they cover it like none of us can hear what they're talking about. I listened, and I was so saddened because this woman had given to Canada. She had no family. She was old. She wasn't terribly sick. But guess what they signed her up for? Maid. On the Monday, they came in, they took this woman out, and they put her down like an animal. And the people who they're putting down are the people who built Canada.
Just to touch on that, the benchmark for the people they get rid of in the hospitals right now is 50 years old and up. During COVID, when it first came out, they had a doctor out of Italy. Everybody that was coming in sick that was 50 and up, they would overdose him with an injection, sit them aside, let him die. He was crying, he was on YouTube, and they immediately silenced him, took down his channel, and hid everything. So 50 years old and up, if you went to the hospital, you were immediately overdosed and put down. This is the crazy shit. And that's Italy. All right? So this has been going on like crazy. Well, you heard Doug Ford and everyone saying that the healthcare system is overloaded. Bullshit. I was in those hospitals. They were emptier than you wouldn't believe. I had to be in there to get my appendix removed. Empty. All right? All of this garbage. But what it is, what happened? We had a shortage of stuff, apparently, a shortage of healthcare. Because the healthcare. But look, in 2019, Doug Ford fired 30,000 healthcare workers. Where's your shortage? Your shortage is of healthcare workers. Not that our medical system is overloaded. We're short-staffed. And that was exactly what you're talking about, the Hegelian dialect. And
Problem, reaction, solution.
There you go. Cause the problem, a shortage. They know full well they're going to bring this shit in. So they, remember, Ed, on the shows where I kept bringing up the legislation where they made those changes just before that step would come in. You can tell clearly that this is an orchestrated attack on the people in Canada and Ontario by our governments that were designed to do this to us. If you're waiting 8 hours in emergency to get seen, blame your government for firing everybody and creating this problem. Not an overload because of a scamdemic that never happened. If it was a real pure pandemic, you wouldn't have had Oosterhoff having parties. You wouldn't have Doug Ford going out on vacations and everything. You wouldn't have these other idiots in Alberta, was it, Ed, that were up on partying it up in Alberta, up on top of outdoors all together. This is bullshit. This was a conditioning. This was a conditioning of the people, so you are robotic, and the next time this happens, you're okay. You would not have had the threat from Justin Trudeau saying, we're going to do it to you again. Let that sink in.
Okay, you guys talking about Medicaid and medical system and shortage of doctors and nurses and shit. 12 hours, 12 hours in emergency these days. In around 1972, I would have been 9 years old. So I've dated myself, guys. Yeah, I'm fucking old as a dinosaur. Anyways, mom took me to the hospital at Jane and 401, small little community hospital. Got in, processed, x-rays, cast, out the door in under 2 hours. That's around 1971, 72. that's before computers even.
You want to tell? I'll tell you my story when my appendix fucked up. I went in around noon. They couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. But when I did go in and I seen the emergency, I said, it's my appendix. I said it was my appendix. I don't need no fucking doctor to diagnose that shit. They kept me all day in there, nothing to drink, nothing to eat. 4 a.m, they take me in for a CAT scan because they were telling me, this is weird. Explaining your symptoms, you shouldn't have the amount of pain you're having. We can't figure it out. They give me a CAT scan, bring me back. Oh, we know what it is. It's your appendix. Thanks for telling me something I didn't know, dipshit. So then, what do? We're gonna transfer you out to hospital up in Hamilton tomorrow around noon, 1 o'clock. So I'm like, okay, cool. Oh, fucking noon, 1 o'clock came and went. Around 4:30, I was finally picked up and taken out and dropped off over there, where I spent fucking 5 days with nothing. I didn't have an IV. I didn't have anything until the last 2 days. Then they tried to wanted to give me a fucking injection for blood pressure, a blood thinner they wanted to shoot me up with. I'm like, no fucking way. And why? They said your blood pressure is a little high. This whole fucking time, and they were saying I'm going to be running a slight fever. You got to have COVID. They tried to tell me over and over I got COVID. I told them to go fuck themselves. Short. And I know my body. I know what I'm feeling. You're not going to tell me any different. So when I ended up going and finally getting surgery, I didn't find out until about 2 weeks after I got out of that fucking hospital, that death place. And my doctor, my family doctor, tells me that my appendix had erupted. And I'm like, well, when did that happen? And she said, oh, when you had gone in, it had already erupted. So they left me with no antibiotics, no nothing for all these fucking days. All right. And then try to shoot me up with a blood thinner because my blood pressure is, oh, of course it is. My body's fighting off an infection, you fucking idiot. So this is the kind of healthcare we have in Canada. And I was probably somebody else. If I wasn't as physically fit that I am, I probably would have been the fucking dead man. I wouldn't be here right now.
Anyways, guys, we're way over time. Peter, thank you so much for coming on.
Always, Ed. Always, Ed.
Guys, I'm going to see if I can get that address back up for you. We need people. We need bodies. If you can get to the GTA, it's 1 o'clock. So if you can get the day off work or something. November 3rd, which is this coming Monday, 1 p.m. It's the federal court at 180 Queen Street West. And if I'm not mistaken, I think that's at the corner of University and Queen. So you've got the address.
Yeah,
it's going to be live in person. The more, the better. The judge is going to have a hard time pulling a fast one on us if there's thousands of people there. And you know what? This one slid right under my radar. I only found out about this a few hours ago. I thought that was dead and gone because they had ruled that it was moot a couple of years ago. But apparently it's still alive and they're doing well. Bodies matter. Stefanos, what can people expect to see there and why should they come down to this case?
Not sure what they expect to see, but I'll tell you, I've seen judges over and over and over. Todd McDonald, Cullen McDonald's case, other cases that the courtroom's full. Those judges will run as fast as they can after they make their rulings to get out of there. It has an impact on them. They don't want to, and even in the cases of all these pedophiles down here in fucking Niagara, for fuck's sakes, even the judges in there, they know when that courtroom is full, and every judge, I've seen multiple cases say repeatedly, Let's get this moving. Let's get it done fast. All these people in here are waiting for this case. They already know. So it's very important that the judges see the public interest and we fill that courtroom up. If it's standing room only, so be it. If it's by video, so be it. But it's best to have both video full and the courtroom full. It has a great impact on judges. They know this is something serious, that's very serious, considered serious by the people. And a judge, being a judge, knows that when constitutional rights come into play, it's a very serious issue for the fact that those are the checks and balances that keep a government from becoming tyrannical. And it also affects them themselves.
Yeah, they're human too. So when they see hundreds of angry people looking at them, they're going to be a little bit careful. Would I be reading this right or not?
Well, it's not so much that the people are angry or not, but they get to see the scope and the impact that it has on Canadians. So they are going to be very careful in making their judgment and how they make it. It's not a form of intimidation or anything. You'll see there's a lot of court cases that go to Supreme Court of Canada and everything, and you'll always see they mention that it's in the interest of the public. That plays a huge role. And a lot of the times, those court fees and legal fees and stuff, each side agrees to pay for their own. They don't impose it on one party or the other because it is an interest of the public. So if it's a big court case with a big impact, they're going to pay very close attention. They're going to do the right thing.
Okay, so guys, this is going to be my final statement before we shut this one down. I don't make any money off of this. I'm not in this for a popularity contest. I'm not in this. I'm not making any money off of this. If anything, it costs me time, a lot of time, along with Stefanos, our friend here, Peter, our guest. We do this because as a society, we have a responsibility to protect each other. This is why I'm asking you guys to show up at this court case. I don't ask for money. I don't ask for donations. Never have, never will. Won't take them either. Mind you, no, I took once. I took $100 for gas in Guelph. Thank you to that fine lady. And I was tight on cash out weekends, so yeah, I took the money once. Show up if you can. And if you can't show up, put this show in the chats. Share it to other groups. People need to know this is going on. This is very important. We need to have that courtroom overflowing. And because this affected a lot of us in Canada, and even the people that were jabbed, the people that went along, that took the jab. If they would have known that, like my cousin, he didn't want to get jabbed, but the wife and the kids were pushing him to go to Disney World, so he took the damn jabs just so he could go to Disney World because he had pressure. Had they not put this in, he'd probably have a longer, better chance of living a long, long time. But now he got injected. I only pray that a lot of us only got the saline solution, but we've seen a lot of our friends, family pass because of this shit. If you're still not mad, you should be. I hope people have a long memory. I couldn't believe it. I had to work weekends because I didn't have the jab, because I knew no one would be there supervising or asking for the jab paperwork. Long hours one long Thanksgiving weekend. Passed on Thanksgiving dinner because I needed to make some money. I had to work. It was bullshit. I don't know if people can ever forgive our government. I certainly won't. These bastards had no right to do what they did. I'm not asking for money. I'm just asking you to show up at this court case if you can. It's a lot better than going to a protest, because at a protest, we're just yelling at empty buildings. No one's paying attention. Make a difference. Show up. 1 p.m., November 3rd, 2025. Federal Court, 180 Queen Street, West Toronto. And I believe it's Queen Street, northeast corner at University, if I think I got the right court case.
It'll be on University, Ed. All the courts are on University Ave. University and Queen is right there. So, but what you just stated, that's your right to life, liberty. Okay? That's your right to life. So if you choose not to take that jab and they're trying to impose on it on something that's a poison, which we've seen worldwide, it's cost millions of lives. No proper testing, no nothing. It's just they used us as an experiment because I've got it from Big Pharma themselves, executives there that I've spoken with, and said that they've been trying for several years since the 80s to develop mRNA vaccines, and they work great for about a week, and then something goes wrong and they cannot figure it out. So this was the big experiment on us, the people. And that's what it is. That's what's happening. But you know what I really remember when we had Brian Peckford on? It was you and me. I think Kevin was sitting in the slammer at the time.
Yep.
And I asked Mr. Peckford that question. Do you not think that the fucking notwithstanding clause should be not in the charter? It should be removed. Remember what he said? No, we need it in there in case. Well, now you see a bureaucrat, an elected idiot that created the charter and thinks this notwithstanding clause that he agreed to have in there, and turns around and it's now used against him. That's fucking justice. That's karma. That's everything you want. And I don't care if people, you don't like me because of that comment, but that's the truth. I've seen over and over in all my years pushing back from tyranny and overreach from government and their bureaucrats on the people that I've helped out, which are several thousand people over the course of years, all across Canada, not just Ontario. And the amazing thing is I've seen mayors, I've seen, MPPs, I've seen all of these people, newspapers, everybody be victims of their own bylaws, bills, bullshit. The 3 Bs, bylaws, bills, and bullshit. I see them being victims of their own hand. Unfortunately, that's the sad reality. Remove the notwithstanding clause now. That way we don't have dictators like Pierre to strip us of stuff. This way, we don't have dictators like Trudeau to strip us of everything. We don't have dictators like Doug Ford to strip us of our constitutional rights to pass unconstitutional laws in the Elections Act, which he done, and were struck down later. So these are the checks and balances. They should never be able to be stripped from us because that keeps government in check.
All right, guys, gone way too long. Again, Peter, quickly, final comment. I'm going to shut this down. We need people to share this out if you can, please.
As a Canadian, I believe every Canadian who is a person who believes in personal sovereignty should show up at 1 p.m. on November 3rd, and you are not just doing this for yourself, you're doing this for future generations and for people who fought at Vimy Ridge, who made Canada Canada. Because what happened during COVID was not the Canada that I was born to.
Later, guys. Stefanos, see you next week. And yeah, we are doing a show even though it is hunting season.